Hey, how's it going everybody, and welcome to the first video in a series where we go over games that have had Kickstarter campaigns, successful or unsuccessful, and discuss what's happened to the games since and where they're at now. I think that this video series will act as both a way to inform my audience on the current progress of any given game, as well as an accountability tool for developers, since we have seen some games either completely go silent or overpromise. I'm not saying this in specific relation to Kindred Fates, but more so just setting up for what this video series will be about. That said, as it pertains to any game I cover in the series, I'm going to be coming at this from a very neutral perspective, refraining from giving my thoughts or opinions. I want this to be a very objective look at where certain games are in comparison to where the Kickstarter has projected they be and what the current status is in terms of the released product if applicable. Now, this isn't to say that any game that's been delayed or has had any unexpected issues should be completely lambasted, because again, this is not the point of the series. Anyways, on to Kindred Fates. The reason I chose to start with this game specifically is because it's the first Kickstarter project I personally ever backed. In early 2020, it made quite a large splash on the Kickstarter scene with its original Kickstarter trailer showcasing a monster taming RPG with real-time combat, something that is scarcely found within the genre. With the game's unique mechanics, visual and audible presentation, and its Kickstarter promising a wealth of features, which we'll get into in a bit, the game ended up receiving roughly $700,000 USD in funding from almost 11,000 backers. The basis of what Kindred Fates is meant to be based on the Kickstarter campaign far exceeds the brief explanation I presented earlier, and we're going to discuss the various features promised for the base game, then we'll discuss some of the extra features added in lieu of the excess funding, since the game's initial goal of 50,000 USD was completely crushed. So from the beginning, let's see how the game is presented via the Kickstarter. Kindred Fates is an open-world monster battling RPG and a love letter to the monster battle genre. Our goal is to evolve the genre and finally bring fans what they've been asking for. One of the things we are most passionate about is delivering a thought-provoking and compelling story. Many of us who grew up with monster battling games hope that they would mature as we did. We aim to create a game with thought-provoking storytelling, antagonists with a sympathetic cause, compelling character development, morally ambiguous decisions, and living with the consequences of your actions. In Kindred Fates, you'll be able to customize the appearance of your human character. There will be a wide selection of clothing, skin color, hair colors, hairstyles, and body types to choose from. They then go on to briefly mention that there will be a fully customizable player house, a guild system that will work somewhat similarly to that of the gyms from Pokemon. Then we have a showcase of branched evolution, which reads, every kinfolk in Kindred Fates has a tree of branching evolutions. When evolving your kinfolk, you will always have a choice to make. Some branches are unlocked simply by leveling up, others require special conditions to be met first. These evolution trees can come in many shapes and sizes. Which will you choose? Then we have Kinfolk Sentience or Sapience, which leads into bonding mechanics, which reads, a bond is a special connection you share with each kinfolk on your team. There are many benefits to having a strong bond with your kinfolk, like them fighting harder in combat, learning new moves, and even becoming a mount. Getting to know them better by playing games, sharing a meal, talking, or winning in combat will raise the bond you have. Losing many times in a row will lower your bond, and so will making choices that upset them. So you might want to find kinfolk whose personalities are similar to your own. If your bond with a kinfolk falls to 0, it is broken. Don't expect them to stick around long if this happens. However, the stronger your bond is with your kinfolk, the harder it is for that bond to be broken or lost. So it's definitely a good idea to form strong bonds with your kinfolk. Then further down, they go over the type chart, which instead of relying on damage multipliers will be intrinsic to different playstyles. Then finally, they mention online functionality, which will have PvP and trading. In interviews, they have stated that a big goal of theirs is to have all 159 kinfolk be relatively balanced, each having their own unique playstyle, making it so that evolutions aren't necessarily superior to pre-evolutions, but instead different. At the bottom, we have a timeline indicating the plan for alpha, beta, and full release, as you can see on screen. Development is ever changing and unexpected issues can pop up, so I always take these timelines with a grain of salt, as they oftentimes are subject to change, which is exactly what happened here. The original launch was planned for 2023, but has been pushed to 2024, with the alpha having come out in November instead of August, and the beta, which is slated for November 22nd, not having a confirmation just yet and likely being delayed as well. One criticism that did arise during the initial release date delay was that the Steam page was changed from 2023 to 2024, with no official announcement being made in the most recent newsletter, which they released bi-weekly, which meant it wasn't actually until the following newsletter 2 weeks later that a more official announcement was made. As of right now, in August 2022, the team has been working on the game, providing various updates for the alpha, which is out, and keeping the community up to date with what's going on, though a lot of information is still hush-hush when it comes to the kinfolk and other elements within the game, which, depending on whether or not you want spoilers, could either be a good thing or a bad thing, pretty much up to preference. The combat alpha itself initially launched with 7 kinfolk, but since has added 2 additional ones, meaning that there is 1 kinfolk for every type at this time. While the alpha did have a pretty significant amount of people playing at the beginning, it has significantly dropped off to only a small handful of dedicated players. The only way to opt into the alpha was backing, whether it be on Kickstarter or on the Kindred Fates website, which in and of itself is a $60 USD paywall, so it's understandable that there would be a smaller pool of players to begin with. This is pretty standard as far as Kickstarters are concerned, having a tier that allows early access to the game in some form. The alpha itself has received both praise and criticism, with some noting that the kinfolk present feel unique, whilst others have noted that the game feels very third-person shooter-esque, since most of the kinfolk utilize range abilities, and those that don't are typically very frail. Through its funding, various stretch goals were reached and subsequently promised for the full build, which include 50 more kinfolk added to the game beyond the initial 109 planned, the game's own version of breeding, the ability to create your own guilds, more bonding activities, a turn-based combat mode, deeper environment mechanics, some legendary kinfolk with their own dungeons, and finally dungeon raids. These mechanics will no doubt add to the complexity of the game. For example, kinfolk can have multiple different personality styles, which will affect how they interact with the player, creating various branches of dialogue. A turn-based mode would have to rethink the combat from the ground up, since types don't interact as they would in a game like Pokemon, etc. When the combat beta does get a confirmed date, it will, to my knowledge, be an extension of the alpha, and that it's a combat-based experience, so most of the single-player elements will be absent until full launch. And that pretty much takes us to where we're at now. We have a playable alpha with the beta pending, a notable delay to 2024, and a consistent newsletter that has been providing development updates, whether they be major or minor. So to recap, what happened to Kindred Fates and where is it at now? Well, the game is still in development. It's had a couple of delays with the alpha by a few months. I'm presuming that'll domino effect over to the beta, and the launch date being pushed from 2023 to 2024. I can't really attest to what the state of development is behind the scenes regarding the single player mode and all of the different complex systems behind that, but it still remains in development with mostly minor news updates here and there. With all that being said, let me know what you guys think about this new series. We did technically do another video kind of like this called What Happened to Anitons, but it doesn't follow the same neutral format and has a lot more of my personal takes. I, for one, am excited to discuss the various games that I've personally backed and sort of catch up with what's going on, because I do think that this is the type of thing the genre needs, as, like I said at the beginning of this video, it will be very integral to showing the community exactly where their money is going, showing examples of games that have delivered, showing examples of games that are in development, and showing examples of games that haven't. Anyways, if you are a fan of monster taming games, definitely subscribe to my channel, because I'm putting out new monster taming videos every single day. I plan on going over pretty much every game that's had a Kickstarter up to this point. So if this is a series you like, liking the video, subscribing, and all that stuff is a pretty good way to show me that it's something you enjoy. You can also check out my Twitter, my Discord, and my Patreon linked below. And I just wanted to say special thanks to my patrons, especially Jim Hamilton, Droghost, and Dark Persona, and we'll see you guys next time. Peace.